Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, my voice kind of went up there as if I was potentially inhaling some helium. It's the Equity.Guru Investor Roundtable, and it is a three-top today. Quite a little variety here. Rob in the lounge, Michelle in the gold vault, and Galen in the basement, right where he belongs, baking cookies. We're talking about helium. We have spoken about this before, the gas. I have a technical question for one of you, but I'll get to that a little bit later. It has to do with the whole vocal cord thing. We're talking about Royal Helium Limited. They are in Saskatoon under President and CEO Andrew Davidson, RHC on the Venture Exchange. Also on the Venture is Imperial Helium under David Johnson in Calgary. And in Vancouver, HELI on the Venture is First Helium under Edward Beresnicki. They have about a $33 million market cap. They're all kind of in that ballpark. It's interesting how we have this helium thing going on in Western Canada. And Mr. Galen there, he did a little write-up about the whole thing right here on Equity.Guru, didn't you?
I did. Let's touch on helium in itself because it's a widely misunderstood resource. When you say helium, people immediately think of sucking gas out of party balloons and having that squeaky voice and don't really think about much else because that's all you ever see is the helium tanks for balloons. Yep. Woo! Right? Well, helium is actually an integral component to a variety of things crossing all sorts of industry verticals and in and of itself is completely irreplaceable. So MRIs have to be cooled with helium. Eye surgery requires helium. Arc welding requires helium. Space exploration requires helium. Leak detection requires helium. Superconductivity requires helium. Nuclear reactors require helium. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. And guess what? It is non-renewable. And a lot of it, relatively speaking, escapes straight into the atmosphere. So it's a dwindling supply everywhere. Now, it is one of the most abundant elements found in the universe, but on Earth, not so much. It's only found in certain regions of the planet. It's the majority of reserves are in the U.S., in Russia, in the Middle East, and what else? Also North Africa.
You said Qatar, right?
Yeah, North Africa. So basically, if you look at these things in and of themselves, we have geopolitical tensions in Russia. We've got supply chain disruptions taking place in Qatar, and we have a dwindling supply of resources. The BLM, or the Bureau of Land Management, was the one that was the custodian for the American reserves, but they went and shuttered their operations in 2021. Now, because people don't really know a lot about helium, they don't know how much it costs. And guess what? It ain't easy to find because this stuff is traded. It's bought and sold on private, long-term contracts that nobody gets to see and nobody wants to talk how much they paid for it. So basically, when the Bureau of Land Management did their last auction in 2018, you had helium going for anywhere between 280,000 cubic feet or $280 for 1,000 cubic feet, and then also capping off at top line of $337. Now, basically, this puts it at about 100 times more valuable than natural gas.
Wow.
So it is a lucrative industry. It's a little bit difficult to get into. You can find helium. Guess what? This is kind of interesting. Wherever uranium is decaying in presence of fossil fuels. So guess what? You can find a lot of it in Saskatchewan and a lot of it in Alberta. So that kind of pushes our way to where we're going to talk about these three companies you could take a look at. But helium, we don't have a lot of it. It's dangerous and it's critical in terms of, not dangerous, it's dangerous in terms of how we're not going to be able to get, never mind, screw the dangerous part. We're not going to be able to get a hold of a lot of it. And it is a critical resource, as it has been described by the United States government and other governments across the planet, because we can't do without it.
And you mean because it's difficult to get a hold of, right?
There we go. That was one. It was the D word I was looking for.
Like it's hard to extract it from whatever you're extracting.
It is actually. There is, and there's two different levels. There's the stuff that you put in balloons, which is pretty low level, and then there's the high grade stuff that you actually use in scientific research, and it's a little difficult to make that happen, or requires a process anyway.
Here's my question though: when you do the thing?
Yes.
Is it the temperature of it that's modifying your vocal cords, or is it the gas that's modifying your vocal cords, or is it
from what I understand, because it's lighter than air, it actually passes through your vocal cords quickly,
Oh,
or quicker than oxygen would, with less resistance, so causes it to vibrate at a higher rate.
All right. Okay, that's interesting.
yeah. Just before Galen, you talk about these companies.
Yep.
Just my thoughts here quickly, because we spoke off the air during our research time here about helium, because as he said, it's not a market you can just easily trade or take a look at prices, right?
No. There's no hedge funds. There's nothing like that. No ETFs.
No ETF. The only way really to get exposure to this, and in my opinion, are some of these companies that you're going to talk about, and a few other helium companies in the junior space here. But there's tons of helium articles that are coming out this year, whether it's NPR or even oilprice.com, where they say helium is one of the hottest commodities of 2022. This article here that I'm showing you from NPR, just from a few weeks ago, mid-June, helium prices are blowing up. And the analyst here talks about, yes, you've heard about inflation, but brace yourself for inflation, because apparently helium prices are going to be going through the roof. They mention, a lot of the geopolitical issues with Ukraine, but there's really a major shortage. And as Galen said, not only is it difficult to extract, but it's something you can't replace. A lot of medical purposes, not just, parties and balloons, aerospace, fiber optics, welding, a lot of things that, we don't really, we talk about it, it's very important for us, but you don't really tie in helium to that kind of stuff. We're always tying in metals, nickel, that kind of stuff. And I think, a gas like this is quite intriguing investment opportunity as well for people trying to look for, I guess you can sort of say, contrarian plays in a time when, every commodity right now is dropping because of recession fears. But from what we're reading, it doesn't seem like helium's taking part in that. So I think that big geopolitical macro issue is still going to be there behind the scenes. And it's one of those markets, like I said earlier on, you can't really gain allocation of it through an ETF. You have to look at these juniors here that are trying to develop a resource for mining, or I guess extracting helium to sell to the market.
Yep.
It's right in our wheelhouse, though. I mean, it's a nice small cap look at these three companies you got here. We'll throw out the symbols again in a bit.
Well, the first company I'd like to talk about is First Helium.
There we go.
I thought that was kind of funny. All right, that company operates in Alberta. It's got its main portfolio package is the Worsley package that it has, the Helium project. They have 3 discovery wells on it, and all of them have hit pay dirt, as it were. Now, as I said, these wells or the helium comes alongside of fossil fuels. So basically, these wells right now are extracting light oil, but they have the helium coming out as well. So the company in and of itself is actually building the facilities in order to extract and process this helium and be able to take it out. So they're well on their way, as it were, and they've got a shit ton of property that they can continue to explore on in terms of what their land package is, and in the area that they're in, as we said before, uranium rich, that kind of stuff. It's around. They have a tremendous possibility of building their production to. Well, right now they look at one of their wells at a base case scenario worth about $15.2 million right now. That's production wise. That's production wise, and that's looking at. Let me see where it is. That's an NPV of 10% discount, and that's based on a $340 per 1,000 cubic foot price. And as Vishal mentioned earlier, we're most likely going to see an upward spike in pricing. I'd like First Helium. I think they're an interesting company. They operate in a friendly area, which is always important, and quite honestly are very, very near to the actual production of helium itself. So if you want to get in on the ground floor, but have the upside of knowing that something's coming down the line, this is an interesting company to take a look at.
Looks like they're ready to produce and just waiting for facility installation, that sort of thing.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And that is HELI, HELI, on the Venture Exchange, and their headquarters in Van.
Yep, absolutely. Now, Imperial Helium is the next company I want to talk about. They're based out of Calgary. but they are operating in Alberta as well. And they have the Steveville asset, which is approximately 200 kilometers east of Calgary. So you're looking at southern Alberta area. Now this thing is, they think, is a host of 1 billion cubic feet of helium. That's a lot of helium.
Seems like a lot of helium.
Absolutely. Now, there was a blowout well in the 1940s in this area that showed a tremendous amount of gas flow. So
Wow.
I'm not thinking that these guys are blowing smoke out of their butts. They really do know what they're talking about, and they're developing this property by leaps and bounds, as it were. They've got an additional zone where they've discovered more helium, and basically they've got a concentration. Now, 1% is actually a pretty high concentration of helium in terms of cutoff points for production. But with this particular zone, they've got 0.51%, which is 19% higher than other areas, their blowout zones that they've tested previous to this. And so basically they're building on their resources, and it looks like they might actually be able to verify the 1 billion cubic feet count. And if the 1940 well blowout is any indication, there's a lot of helium to be had there. Now, also in this story is something very interesting. In May, they announced that they were going to be acquired by Royal Helium, another one of the players in Canada, and it was an all-share deal. And this is a really good sign to a certain extent for investors and shareholders in Imperial Helium, because it shows that another company is looking at them going, you know, what you got is actually pretty damn good, and we want to get in on it. Now, what this deal does for shareholders in Imperial Helium is it not only exposes them to the production capacity, which is basically, again, sort of on the cusp. They're working to build facilities to actually do the production of the helium and stuff. So they're getting near to that point. But what it does is, as I said, not only it gives them exposure to this production capacity, it gives them exposure to Royal Helium's tremendous portfolio of exploration potential. Now, on that note, I'm going to move quickly on to Royal Uranium. Royal Uranium, or sorry, Helium, sorry, uranium on the brain, they're related. Anyway, Royal Helium is operating out of Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. And all their properties are sort of crossing the swath of southeastern Saskatchewan. Again, another area where you can find these elements that create helium. They've got, in 2021, they discovered the Climax Nazaire zone within their Climax block. They have about 10 blocks worth of exploration property that they're working on, and they've been pretty excited about that. They've been able to determine 6 drill targets in that area, and they're currently going to get those drills in the ground and start doing the whole testing production thing. A little further back to a certain extent in terms of progress for Imperial, but a shit ton of land and a shit ton of possibility and potential. So the combination of these two companies seems to be a bit of a perfect storm. And we'll see over the next few years how these guys are able to execute it. They haven't made the acquisition yet. We're expecting the vote to take place on July 12th, I should say, at a shareholder meeting, for Imperial. And then we'll figure out whether or not this actually goes through. I don't think there should be an issue. They're getting a pretty good deal. It's an all-share transaction, and you wake up one day and you got a really big company on your hands.
Huh.
And Royal Helium's actually the largest helium leaseholder already in North America, which is pretty.
Yep. Royal is. Just to clarify this, so Imperial is presently IHC on the Venture Exchange, and Royal is RHC on the Venture Exchange as well. So they're pretty close together in that regard as well.
Yep.
Let's hit those wacky charts and see how they're doing. I know one was ticking up today.
Yeah, we had First Helium that was up 4% here today, but just a funny thing, Gail and I were talking about, holy cow, there's already acquisitions happening in this space. And, it's like a space that not too many people are keeping or paying attention to. So I thought that's already wild that, we're already seeing acquisitions, which is usually a sign of good things, right, happening in this market. And I'm expecting the boys over at Royal Helium are quite bullish helium, but obviously that's why they're in this business. If we take a look at the charts, again, I just want to remind you all that a lot of commodities have been getting smashed because of recession fears. Palladium is like the only other commodity I know that is actually holding up. I guess you can say oil, sort of. Just on the day we're recording, it had a good day, but I mean, it was down like over 8% just a few days ago. And you know, if you're taking a look at some of these charts on helium, they're still holding on. And to be honest, I do like what I'm seeing on the structure for Imperial and also on Royal. They look pretty much similar in the sense that they are just basing and they have been ranging here for quite some time. And I think it has to do, you know, with the obvious acquisition talks or buyout talks, right? Perhaps, and maybe the market's just waiting for that shareholder meeting until, you know, something develops, and then, you know, we'll see what the takeaway price is or the buyout price. But, you know, withholding that Imperial Helium here under 20 cents, it's making our very popular double bottom pattern. You know, looks like the shape of a W here. And, you know, you get a break above 20 cents and this thing will start to go. And I'm assuming, well, Galen, they haven't put it on the press release, like what the price would be for Imperial Helium, right? Like in terms of share price if Royal buys them out?
No, they've just sort of talked about what the share deal was, and they'll be rolling in together. So, I mean, I guess it'll be whatever the nominalized price would be for Royal. Yeah.
Okay. So keep that in mind. That's probably why both of these companies' charts are ranging, because we have that big catalyst coming up ahead. Very similar, you know, looking range here on Royal Helium, ranging between 30 cents to, you know, 38.5 cents. And this is probably the one that you might want to be looking at, just if, you know, they're the ones that are going to be doing the acquisition. So you're going to have both companies rolled up here into one. But I got to tell you, you know, these type of charts, these basing type of things are what I'm looking at right now, especially with signs of the overall stock markets beginning to base and bottom. A few tech companies, but it's good to see, you know, commodity stocks doing the same thing. And then First Helium, a little bit different. Major support level here at 47 cents. I always mention that 50-cent zone because that's such a psychological important number for anything trading under $1 here. And, you know, in recent days here, actually in recent maybe 2 weeks, we've seen a range here develop between about 47 cents to the downside to about 55 to the upside. So we're just patiently waiting for a break. So it's not just Imperial and Royal that's ranging, but also First Helium here. And I think, you know, when I see support levels like this and multiple days, or in this case, weeks of range, it definitely goes towards the top of my watch list, because these are the type of patterns I like to watch for consolidation. You know, it shows this idea that the selling pressure has exhausted. There's a battle here now between the bulls and the bears, those who are bullish, those who are bearish, and we're going to see one side win. And, you know, we're hoping it's the bulls, but it just gets even more intriguing, not just with the acquisitions that we're seeing, but with the whole idea that, hey, no one's talking about helium. There is real issues on the fundamental supply and demand side of things and disruptions. Helium prices are blowing up. We can't trade, you know, a helium ETF or helium futures. So I'm getting excited by looking at some of these charts here that are ranging, and it looks like we're going to see a nice combination of good fundamentals and good technicals.
I'll tell you what, it's a fascinating topic. It's a cool sector, and it's very interesting to, as you just pointed out, to watch this thing. So that said, we know Frozen Guy in the far corner is going to spend $7,500 today. He's blowing the whole kitty.
Oh yeah.
On,
he didn't even wait for it all to end. He just threw his money in.
Yeah, he did. So 2,500 times 3 for him, I guess. Yep. Total is 7,500, yep. Which brings us to Galen to decide if he's doing the same damn thing.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I advise Chris to do the split, three-way split, because there's an interesting proposition, even though 2 of those investments will roll into 1. I like First Helium because it's up about 75% from last year at this time, and shows potential because the catalyst is production with this company. Yep. And it's expecting within the next 12 months to actually commence. So there's going to be some upward movement on that. Also, there's going to be some positive movement on the Royal/Imperial side when Imperial starts putting its rubber to the road and gets its facility going and actually starts producing. All of these companies I'm looking at long term. I'm
Yeah.
not going to trade them on a day. I'm throwing my money in, and I'm going to wait for 10 to 20 years down the road, and just enjoy my revenue.
Sorry, I was muted for a second. That's going to
No
be
worries.
that's going to be all 7,500.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm going to do the same thing here, Rob, all 7,500, but I'm going to be splitting it between First Helium and Royal Helium, just because, with the whole acquisition talks, I'm assuming, if it's going to be Royal that takes over, it'll be the shares on Royal Helium, which will be trading there with the combination of Imperial. I think it's safe to say, Galen, that First Helium is probably the most advanced of these projects here.
Yeah.
So I think, that's a very interesting proposition. You guys know how I am, or even Galen is, when it comes to miners, and we like to look for these more advanced de-risk projects, and First Helium fits the bill there. And then you have Royal Helium, who have the largest land lease holders of helium in North America. So I think that's saying something, especially with the fundamentals of helium. So even split there of 7,500, half of it in First Helium and the other half in Royal Helium for me.
And we got the bell.
Ding.
Got the bell. Ding. We got. Did you hear the bell, or did I mute the bell?
Ding, ding,
Oh, you
ding.
did hear the bell. Yeah.
No,
Ding,
I
ding,
didn't hear it. But ding, ding, ding.
Wait a minute. You didn't hear it? I must have had mute on. Hold on a minute.
All right.
Hold on.
There it is.
I can't believe I muted the bell. That's embarrassing.
There we go.
Everybody spends. Everybody drops to 7,500. So we'll remind people right now, here they are. It's RHC, which is Royal Helium Limited out of Saskatoon. It's IHC, also on the venture. Imperial Helium, they will soon become, and then that's the official code for acquisition. First Helium is HELI on the venture exchange out of Vancouver. What we have said is not guaranteed. We can't guarantee anything. We just provide information, and you have to, folks out there have to, of course, do some research, diligence, and make your own decisions. Please don't rely on us completely. And of course, past results do not guarantee future results. We're not going to do any of the jokes today. I'm just going to move on from helium and look forward to seeing you on the next Equity Guru Investor Roundtable.